Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the first webinar in our new KFI Capabilities series, a quarterly briefing designed to showcase KFI's product offerings. Today's presentation will focus on streamlining financial intelligence for depository institutions and industry participants. To learn more about KBRA Financial Intelligence, simply scan the QR code on screen. While all attendees have joined in listen-only mode, we encourage you to engage with our presenters by submitting a question via the Q&A feature. Should you have any additional questions on the topics discussed today, we are always available for a follow-up call. Now, I'd like to hand things over to Lance Caldwell, a Senior Director on the KFI team, who will introduce today's session.
Well, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Sean and I are very excited to spend a bit of your afternoon, morning with us to learn more about KBRA Financial Intelligence, or KFI. I am Lance Caldwell. I'm the newest member here on the team, joined a few months ago as a Senior Director and responsible for outreach and education. I'm going to be taking some time to go through the web application with you here in a bit, but Sean's going to get us kicked off. And so, Sean, I'll let you introduce yourself and get us started today.
Thank you, Lance. Hey, everybody. I'm Sean McGovern, Associate Director here at KBRA Financial Intelligence. I'm the Head of Research. If you're familiar with our Insights product, where we take all of our data, all of our bank, credit union data, put it into topical research content with a macro focus, kind of politics, regulation, economic developments, analyze how that all flows down into the banking industry. That is, I'm the author of those. And if you ever attended one of our webinars before, you probably know me pretty well at this point as well. So I'm going to take us into an introduction today before we get into our demo. I know we have a lot of people here who know us well, some clients, but we've got some new people as well. So just to lay a little groundwork here, KBRA Financial Intelligence, financial analytics for U.S. banks, credit unions, and industry participants. We were born out of Kroll Bond Rating Agency, a global credit rating agency, launched in 2020 as a data provider for nearly 10,000 U.S. banks and credit unions. What does KFI do? Provides comprehensive financial intelligence spanning many data sets, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those data sets are and why they matter. Our intuitive data tools, Streamline Analysis. Now, one of our data sets that I want to talk about here at the top is our KFI Scores. You'll hear about those a lot as we go through our presentation today. KFI Scores, that measures banks, credit unions, and bank holding companies' health each quarter with comprehensive banking data. We have 3 separate models to score all of those institutions. The scoring runs A, B, C, D, E. So if you see that, A is going to be the strongest, E is going to be the weakest. And through back testing and other analysis, we found that banks that fall into that D to E range, so it's going to be weak and poor financial condition, 96% of banks that failed between 2010 and 2025, 96% of those banks actually did end up failing later on. So you'll see those KFI scores as we go through things. Just want to kind of introduce that. But in addition, I want to talk about our clients. So we have 2 main use cases, being peer benchmarking, counterparty risk analysis. That allows us to service a wide spectrum of clients because you'll have the financial institutions, obviously, but then you'll also have large depositors as well. So you see we have banks here, as well as credit unions, corporates, investment firms, financial services, associations, and insurance firms as well that are currently using KFI for either of those use cases and some other use cases as well. Talk a little bit more about those. Peer benchmarking, our peer analysis to support strategy, governance, and growth. So we have performance analysis to identify strengths and growth opportunities using standardized metrics and support data. Complete balance sheet analytics, where you can analyze loan, deposit compositions, anything that's on the balance sheet. We have that in our platform, as you'll see today. And once again, I will talk a little about just what more specifically those data sets are as we get into this. But finally, want to talk about strategic and board level insights. You're going to evaluate M&A partnership opportunities, prepared for board and executive meetings. These are all things that KFI can empower your organization to do. Other use case, counterparty risk, as I mentioned, financial analysis to support third-party oversight, investment, and capital access. You have investment and credit monitoring, monitor subordinated debt portfolios and evaluate new investment opportunities, counterparty and relationship risk, assess banking and deposit relationships for concentration, exposure, and stability, as well as program eligibility criteria. And this one's very interesting because we actually have a use case that we can shout out here. Government agencies use KFI scores as an acceptance criteria for their lending program. So we have Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, and Freddie Mac in there takes our KFI scores as a super easy, intuitive, but also effective way to kind of monitor their counterparty risk relationships, right? Now, just to give you one last thing here, and then we'll get into our demo, our data sets. Getting into what those are specifically, we have our call reports, which actually go into our KFI scores. That's how we get those KFI scores through the call reports for the banks and credit unions. We also have the bank holding company reports for I-9C, UBPR for the banks as well. Bank holding companies will have gap filings for the publicly traded firms. Other data sets like our KFI scores, which I've talked about, summary of deposits data that actually hydrates a nationwide map of branches and deposits. We get through the summary of deposit data. M&A data, as well as CRA and enforcement action data, macroeconomic and demographic data, and our KFI Insights research, which I talked about a little bit already. All of these data sets go into some amount of our insights. We cover a wide spectrum with that. And those are free, by the way, if you want to get our insights research. If any of the data here seems interesting to you, but you want to see more about how that's used kind of in a applicable framework for analysis, you should sign up for insights. You can do that right on our website. Without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Lance here, and we're going to get into our demo today. Going to go through all of the different ways you can use KFI, all of our delivery channels. We'll have our web app, we'll have our Excel add-in, and actually we do have data feeds as well. We could talk more about those if anyone has any questions. Please do ask any questions through the Q&A feature. But here we're going to get started with our web app now. I'll be watching that Q&A, and I look forward to answering some stuff as we go through or at the very end.
Thank you so much, Sean. Just confirming you can see my screen.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, welcome again, everyone, to our session this afternoon. I am showing you the landing page for KFI. And what you're seeing is the proprietary scoring model that we have created and allow you to go out and work with on a regular basis. The 4,236 banks that we're reflecting here are those on the bank side. We also, as Sean mentioned, have the same model for holding companies and credit unions, but we're just going to stay in the bank space here for the majority of our time today. But you can filter this information by state, by region. If you're looking at banks within a specific asset size, you can do that. And then also by score, which those scores run from A to E. And we have definitions out here under our resources tab. And so I'm just going to select that scoring scale page so you can see that A scored institutions are those that are considered to be in strong financial condition. B are sound. C are adequate. D are those that are judged to be relatively weak. And then E is poor. We do have instances where you might find an entity is not scored, and that's generally when we don't have information that's needed for our modeling. So we'll just put NS in that case, and then for new institutions, there are a few of those. We hope to get more of them, but we wait until an entity has been around for 3 years before assigning a score. So A, B, C, those also have modifiers of plus and minus that you'll notice when we go back to the main page, but a majority of the banks do fall into that B category that are sound. And when you look at the criteria, the inputs that go into the model, they span across asset quality, earnings, capital, and so we do have return on assets here for the entire population of banks and non-performing assets as well. You can see what the medians are in the group, but if I wanted to narrow this down to just a specific state, I'm based in Kansas. I can look at those 187 institutions and see exactly how they're spread out across the scores that we have. Down below, there's an ability to look at the banks individually and just kind of see those. We have just 10 rows selected, but you can go up to 100. But if you're interested in seeing how a bank has moved between quarters, which up here I should have pointed out from third quarter to fourth quarter. So these scores are all based upon our call report data from the year into the year 2025. But if I wanted to see, banks that have slipped a bit or those that have not in the way of their score moving from one quarter to the next, you can search using that tab. Over here, if I want to see those that are the weakest in the state or the ones that are strongest, you can toggle those as well. Asset size, and then we do showcase the return on assets, non-performing, and capital here on the side. So if you see a bank that is moving in a rapid fashion up or down, you can at least have an idea of some of those items that are influencing that score. So this is the landing page. I think it's really interesting to search and look around and see what's happening within your geography. And so we've made this very simple for your purposes in that regard.
Yeah, and we're going to jump into a specific company page for a bank, but it's just worth noting here that if you are a KFI subscriber, you get access to all of the KFI scores, all of the bank pages that you're going to see here. We'll have them if you are with a bank. We will have those for your bank. If you're with a credit union, we will have those for your credit union, but you'll also get access to all 10,000 of those scores with a subscription to KFI.
No, that is an excellent point, Sean. Thank you so much. So to go to that specific bank page, you can search by name, ticker, RSSD, FDIC cert number, or we have our own unique KAC ID. I'm going to go ahead and just click in that, and I'm going to use a bank here again in Kansas that I'm familiar with, Equity Bank. And so I've selected that. And up at the top, you'll see those unique identifiers. Again, the KAC ID, which is our unique identifier, and that'll become important when we move into the Excel add-in. That's one of those key identifiers that you can use to locate the banks that you're wanting to analyze in your peer benchmarking or counterparty risk use cases. The RSSD, cert number, and an FHLB ID. But you'll see here just at the top, branch map, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on that feature in a moment. But you'll see the name, website, location, parent company if there is one, subsidiaries if they exist, the size, branches, deposits. So all very good high-level information to get a sense of what's going on with the bank. We also have the CRA rating out here, the most recent one, as well as any enforcement actions for the last few years. And then since this institution is one that we actually rate on the NRSRO side, it has an actual credit rating in addition to a KFI score, and that'll be depicted here. So not all banks will have that. We have about 160 or so in the industry that we work with. And so if that's applicable, that will be highlighted there as well. But you'll see a history of how the score has changed underneath the little diagram here. And then down below, we have the performance metrics that feature how they're doing on a profitability level, asset quality, capital, liabilities, and funding, showing those graphic representations over a 5-quarter period. And then over on the right-hand side, we have these measures on an annualized basis in this view, showing those items that go into the score, into the model that we have. But one feature that I'll make sure you know about is our snapshot report. So if I click on that, it brings me to a brand new page, shows you the same information. It's organized a little bit differently. And now we've shifted into a quarterly view, showing some trends across all those inputs that go into our model. And then we've also allow you to look at it quarterly, annually, if you'd like, a different quarter. If you want to toggle to a previous quarter from sometime in the past, it goes back quite a ways. And then you can also select PDF, and then that'll generate a single page front and back that you can go and email it or print it and share it with your management team or other interested parties that want to learn more about what's going on with the institution. After the snapshot report, we have several other pages that we've curated that we find are really helpful as you're trying to assess a specific institution. This first one is a calculation summary. And you can look at this under various periods, as few as 4, as many as 40. I'll just leave it at 8 for now. You can look at the items under different calculation conventions, quarterly, trailing 12 months, annual, half year, or year to date. You can reverse these items forward or backwards, whatever your preference might be. And then in the case of dollars, if we had those on this slide, which we'll see that in a moment, you could select millions or thousands. But since these are all ratios, they're just reflected in that fashion. But every single item that's in our data warehouse has its own very unique mnemonic that we've assigned to it. And you'll see this prefix of KCAL, ROAA in this case, which return on average assets. But that KCAL reflects that this is a call report item. So you'll know exactly where that source is coming from. And we've standardized that across the entire industry, regardless of whether you're an 031, 041, or 051 filer. So it's really helpful to know that everything is consistent across the board. And then all these calculations are done following regulatory conventions, but you're able to audit these and see exactly which inputs they are. And we have a data dictionary too, that if you're curious what KBRA 4340 is, you can go out and take a look at that and cross-reference it. But you can highlight these, copy them into a spreadsheet here, makes it really simple to navigate. And every item or page that we'll look at this in this particular view under the financials, you can actually download these into Excel if you want to manipulate this information separately from the web application. So after calculation summary, which has the performance metric, asset quality, capital, liquidity, and funding, you scroll down and show you all those major components. The financial summary then is a consolidated income statement and balance sheet for you to take a look at. And again, you can look at these things in different conventions, different periods, and then you can forward and reverse those if you'd like. And then the millions or thousands. So if you want to move it out to thousands, that might look a little bit easier. Kind of shows you exactly what's going on with all these specific line items. But again, they have their mnemonic so that you know exactly where to go to find it if you're out, which we'll show you here shortly in the data warehouse, trying to retrieve specific points. Yield and costs are out here. Same scenario where you can see those calculations, all those same features on this page. Compositions, just looking at the various components of the balance sheet on a common size basis, looking at loans or deposits. And then from this point forward is where we have some of the items that are coming strictly from the call report. And so you can look at these and notice that, again, they're all going to have that identifier for where they're coming from. After the call report information, we do have UBPR. So if you've been accustomed to going out to the FFIC.gov to retrieve this, we have this here for you to keep it simple, easy. And in this case, we have selected pages that allow you to go out and look at the balance sheet information, summary ratios, allowance loan mix. So again, that's really, really helpful not to have to go to another place to get this information. The peer group here for this particular view is going to be the FFIC definitions. And so since Equity Bank falls between that $3 and $10 billion threshold, that's the peer group that's being utilized here. But you can definitely create your own peer groups and we'll show you how to do that here in a bit so that you don't have to be confined to just what FFIC sets forth. You can make it your own. It could be based on really any criteria that you want. After the financials at the bank level, we do have scores and ratings. And so as you might recall, we had these items on the overview page, but this is just another view of both the score as well as the KBRA issuer ratings. The branch map, you saw a little bit of this on that overview page, but this is really powerful. This is summary deposit data that comes in from the FDIC on an annual basis. So this is based on June from last year, 2025. And you can go in real tight and you'll look at each of these locations and see exactly where they are, street address, and what the actual deposit amounts are at each of these banks. If you're interested in looking at a market, perhaps you're thinking about branching into a location or wanted to see what maybe a combination would look like with your bank and another. I'm going to put Astra Bank in here, and that will allow you to see what happens when you kind of layer in another institution. You can see that these footprints don't necessarily overlap that closely. They're kind of close to each other, but you can definitely see what's happening and where they're at. And if you wanted to even add in, say, another bank, just out of curiosity's sake, we have one more here in Kansas that kind of fills out the footprint. So all three of these banks, compete against one another. But if you want to see what's going on in those markets, whether you're wanting to go there or perhaps acquire an institution, this will help you in that type of investigation and research. CRA ratings, we saw just the most recent one out under the overview page, but here we have a history, and it'll show you who the regulator is, the date, and what the actual rating is. You could sort this by date range if you'd like. And enforcement actions, in this case, I do believe they may have a few here for this bank. And in the cases where you do find those, you can go out and select this little option on the right-hand side, and that'll pull up the actual document that is related to whatever that enforcement action might be. So you can view that within the web app. So those are the main things I wanted to show on the bank side. I'm going to flip back to corporate structure, because this will allow you to see, what the hierarchy looks like. And so in this case, Equity Bank does have a few subsidiaries that they've established over the course of time. They could have acquired these from banks that they have purchased. But the top tier, the holding company, Equity Bank Shares, we can quickly navigate to it just by selecting that hyperlink. And now we've come to their overview page. And it looks very similar to the bank size, except that we don't have a branch network. It's just the bank and where it's located in Wichita. But you'll see some of those other vitals, total assets. If there were enforcement actions at the top tier, they would be highlighted. And then we do have the KBRA issuer rating at the holding company level. The KFI score is for the holding company based upon the fourth quarter of last year. And then some very similar views that we looked at a moment ago for the bank, but this is the consolidated picture for the organization. Snapshot, same thing. You can see that those graphs are highlighted here, and we have a quarterly view showing the trends of the score for the holding company, and you could select annual, quarterly, change the quarter, or PDF if you'd like. Calculation summary, you're going to notice when we select return on average assets now, this is actually going to be changed to the KY9C ROAA. So now we're looking at the bank holding company regulatory filing. But in this case, you can look at the equation for the calculation and audit all these things just as we did before on the bank side. Financial summary, all these same features and functionality exist for viewing, compositions, income statement, and the like. So as you go down through those items, you'll see the form a Y9C. This bank, being a publicly traded institution, also has GAAP data. So we extract this from the SEC's website. We standardize it and make it available for you. You'll be able to use our Excel add-in to bring this into any type of reporting that you might want to have for internal purposes. And so these items then, when I select that, as far as its mnemonic, it now changes to KGAP for the GAAP filing. And this particular field I picked is the interest and fee loans and leases. The holding company also has scores and ratings. So you can see that's replicated there. But documents, this is really helpful. If you're tracking and wanted to see what earnings transcripts look like, you can go out and look at that. Download those transcripts and read them at your leisure. So those are out here also embedded within the web application. On the publicly available data, not seeing the prices and estimates there, but we do have the estimates. We typically have the prices, but I'm not sure why that's showing up. Apologize for that, but that is normally the case. But the estimates are here. Enforcement actions. We don't have any. And M&A, this is where the transactions for the holding company are listed. You can select the deal ID, and that'll bring up another dialog box, which will tell you more about the transaction. In this case, Equity announced last year that they were buying a company up in Nebraska. And so I think their next filing, we're going to see some branches up in that state once they file a consolidated call report.
Actually had our first question come in, Lance,
Yeah, you
about
bet.
the M&A data, just if we would be showing M&A, and of course we are. We'll show it in this view as actually you can go back to where we were, Lance.
Sure, you bet.
We'll be showing it in this view, but when we get to the dashboard as well, which we'll be moving on to soon, we'll have each company page will have M&A in this view, but we'll also have more of a macro industry overview of M&A deals that can be sorted by date or size and any kind of different way you want to look at it as we get into the dashboard. So just wanted to answer that before we went any further.
No, thank you, Sean. So we've pretty much covered all the options here, both for the bank and the bank holding company. And we'll go back up to our top navigation bar, and we're going to move on over to the industry tab. And this is the summary deposit data as well that you can look at. That's from the FDIC. And I'm going to select Wichita, Kansas, to keep the theme with Equity Bank. But I'm also going to select Kansas City, my hometown, and so we can see what these two markets look like from an MSA perspective on their deposit compositions. So I'm going to generate my report. And for those that have been out under the FDIC's website, this might look a bit familiar as far as how it's presented. We're going to show you even a more powerful way to look at this information in just a moment, but just wanted to make sure you knew that this functionality existed here. And then you can certainly download this into an Excel file and manipulate it in a way if you wanted to sort it and group it for both inside or outside of market deposits. We're now going to move over into the dashboard, and this is taking our information that we have in the data warehouse that we've looked at it more at a micro or entity level. Now we're going to take it to a macro or industry level. And so we have some of the same things we've looked at before, but it's presented in a way that really provides you with a more robust look at the entire industry. And so the first area, looking at CRA ratings, enforcement actions, you can see that those are highlighted here based upon the distribution from the various agencies, the actions by type and category, and there's some trend items here that you can look at for the ratings by year and certain types of enforcement actions that have over a time period. But if I select the bank option under CRA, this is where you can go in and specifically look at by regulator, by company ID, by state, if that's something that they're trying to analyze and look at, see all the different ratings that are there and available. And then down below, you can see that ratings distribution as well as how they're categorized across those various levels from needs to improve to outstanding, satisfactory, substantial non-compliance. Enforcement actions has a similar capability for filtering these. You can look at them again by the regulatory agency. You can look at it by state if you'd like, and even by action type and category. And so these are all here for you to peruse. And then we have the graphic representations where you can see where they're, what types that they have are coming from. And then even a little table here that'll show the companies that how many they may have in each of these categories. Moving on to the deposit summary, our macro analysis. The default view is selecting the 4 largest banks in the country. And you can see that this map is very colorful and full of over 15,000 total branches across the entire nation with nearly $6 trillion in deposits between B of A, JP, PNC, and Wells Fargo. But you can definitely define the market more narrowly based upon your needs. And so you can go down and look at it from an MSA, state, city, branch, and county. And so I'm just going to type in my home state, Kansas, for now, and we'll take a look at that. And that's going to isolate in those 4 institutions that we were looking at. And you can see here in my hometown, there's a presence, and then they're out in Wichita too. But if I wanted to expand and define my market a little bit more, I could also put Kansas again. And if I wanted to add in Missouri, hit save. Now you've seen that I've picked up both states and you can look at those more selectively. All these changes that I'm making as I'm working through, whether it was in the CRA ratings, enforcement actions, and now that I'm in the deposit, I can save these in my view and name them. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But down here in this little, you can manage and save it, name it, and then have it in your library so that if you want to come back in and look at things on a regular basis, you can definitely do that. But if I want to get rid of just these all all these large banks, I can come in here and select a few more and ladder those in, bring them into the mix, and then it will also allow me to see more banks across the state, and it will build out my branch deposits here and see all these different institutions. So it comes in, it becomes quite again a much broader picture of all the banks that are in these two states. And then down below, I have that visual similar to what we saw in the industry page, where it'll show market share and those that are selected. So Equity Bank, with this look, I mean, they're down the list only about 4% because we still have UMB and B of A in the mix. They're really the largest deposit gatherers here in these two states that we're looking at during this session.
Lance, if you could just scroll back up and
Yeah,
just hit the X on all of those, just that little X there. So
yeah.
if you clear out all of the RSSDs and you just leave none, what that will actually do, and just say we have two states here, that gives you a complete overview of all the bank branches in these two states. Now you could do 3 states, 4 states, as many states as you want. You could do the whole country, really. There's no limitation on this feature. We have all of the banks and all of the branches here. It's really up to you how you want to slice it and dice it by region or by certain banks. But you can see here that we have Kansas and Missouri, 3,400, well, more than 3,400 total branches, and about $371 billion in deposits there. Just kind of wanted to show just how much we can expand this out. We can include all banks here as well.
No, thanks, Sean. It's a great point. So we've looked at things at more of a global perspective, but now we can take it down to a single branch level on this next item in the dashboard. So our default view is a branch in Hollywood, out in LA, California. It's a Wells Fargo branch, and this will allow you to see the history in this location all the way back to 1994 and how the deposits have changed over that course of time, whether they're growing or contracting, whatever the case may be. And then down below, we have a visual view of the map of where it's located, and then a history time series of those changes in deposits, as well as the percentage change that is happening over that time frame. So Sean mentioned we have a number of data sets too that bring in some demographic and macroeconomic data. With his work that he does for our team and the newsletters and things, he sends out insights on a regular basis. And if you're not registered or signed up for those, I'll go ahead and make a plug for them. I think he'll probably encourage you to do the same, but get signed up. They're free and they're really good content. And so, Sean, tell us a little bit how you use KFI for some of the research that you do.
Yeah, this is something really unique that we did with KFI not too long ago. We are cross-referencing bank and census data. It says demographic data, and the census is the best source for that. We bring that right into KFI because the way that we look at banking, banks are largely a reflection of the communities that they operate in. And if we want to look at age, for example, if you'll open that one up, Lance, something that we did in our insights back in 2025 was that we sort of wanted to quantify the impact of aging on deposits. I think everyone here is probably aware that the nation is aging, right? And actually across 370 or so MSAs, every single one is getting older. So there's nowhere really in any of the metropolitan statistical areas that's getting younger. Well, what is the difference between the ones that are aging the slowest and the ones that are aging the fastest? And we were able to create an analysis that showed there was a pretty statistically significant gap in deposit growth in the banks that were most heavily concentrated in the MSAs that were aging the quickest versus the ones that were aging the slowest. And that's just one way that you can use this demographic data to kind of get a better idea of, where are families forming the most? Where is there going to be mortgage demand? Where is there going to be deposit growth? Because younger people, as you're coming into your 20s and 30s, you're typically building up your deposit account. You're building up, all these different kinds of forms of debt you might need, financing, whereas older people over 65, retirement age, they're usually drawing on their deposits, relying less on debt. That's just kind of one high level way that you can look at different markets. I mean, I looked at it at a nationwide level, but you could look at each individual MSA, however you want to break it up. That's one example of how we've leveraged this demographic data in our insights and just kind of show this is how you can use this data set. It's not bank data specifically, but it's bank related.
That's great, Sean. Thank you. And then I think probably a number of our folks on the session day are familiar with FRED. It's the Federal Reserve's database of a tremendous amount of information. And we've brought in quite a few of their data points. We have a default view on GDP, but you'll see that we have quite a few other things that you can come in and look at across the information that they provide, including Fed funds, inflation, you name it. We have GDP, home ownership, initial claims on employment, and you can look at this, categorically as well as, over specific date periods. And then we have some graphs that allow you to, prepare these and use them for board meetings, for instance. Any other thoughts that you would have, Sean, on some of these that you might have used in your research?
Yeah, we've got hundreds of data points here. I mean, Fred is a vast, huge data system, and it's great, but it's a whole other site you have to go to, and oftentimes there's old, antiquated data sets that are no longer updated. We've kind of brought in the ones that we think are the most relevant to the banking industry, the things that analysts and CFOs, anyone of that nature, would be most wanting to sort of look at cross-referencing with bank data. And if there was anything we didn't have in here that you wanted, we could absolutely bring it in. But as it stands right now, hundreds of data points here, and this can be built out limitlessly however you want to do it. You see we have our dashboard here with some of the leading data points that we look at. But this is a great way to just have access to all these macroeconomic data points from BLS, BEA, the Federal Reserve System without having to go to external sites. You have it right here inside KFI with your bank data.
That's great. Sean mentioned before that the M&A, we had that not only at the entity level, but at an industry level. And so this particular page in the dashboard is going to give you everything that's going on, whether it's a rumor canceled, pending, complete. We have that out here for you to take a look at. And so just another way for you to keep tabs on what's going on. And we do anticipate, as I think a lot of folks have seen, a tremendous amount of M&A activity here in the last few years, and it's probably going to remain that way for at least a little while. And so this will just be a great resource for you to see what's going on across the industry. The last thing before we turn to our Excel add-in demonstration and how that works, I wanted to show our sentiment analysis for the KFI score. So back on the home page, we had everything for you to look at, across the industry, but now we're looking at a specific bank, and we're looking at it over a time frame, in this case 10 quarters, and Flagstar being the default here for you to view. This bank was doing very well back in the first quarter of 2023, and then as you can see, it started to have some decline over the course of time, and now it's making its way back up into that adequate category. But if an institution wants to see how its score is changing over several quarters, this will allow you to do that. You'll see the performance measures, asset quality, all these things here that are influencing the score depicted in the graph, and anything above 0 is helping their score, and anything below that is not helping their score. So in this case, with Flagstar, the decline, it really was the asset quality component that was influencing that decline. And now, as it's making its way back up, they're becoming a bit stronger. But there's quite a few things that go into the model overall. But at least this will give you a way to look and see what do I need to be focusing on to help my score get better. We also provided a multi-bank view, and so if you're interested in showing how your score stacks up against some of your peers, you can do this at a quarterly level. Pick your institutions. Here we have 5. You can have certainly more than that. If you wanted to have 4, 5, 10, you can make this as big to look at a number of different institutions if you'd like. But in this case, you can go out and see, okay, I'm a B minus, and my bank down the street might be a C plus. Well, what's causing those score differences? And you can see that here on this particular view.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue here into our next question. Can we see how custom reports are built out, specifically comparing the same metrics across multiple banks? Now, this is a great way, right, in our web app there that Lance was just looking at to compare KFI scores and all that. But when you want to get into the financial data, you want to get into the call reports and things like that, the way that we're going to do that is in our Excel add-in. And I think Lance just opened that up now, so we'll be able to address that in a second. I have one more question. Does it require specific subscription in order to view M&A data? I don't see it under my current access. Reach out to us. Reach out to us, and we can get that in place for you if you don't have it currently, or if it's not displaying for you. But I believe we can definitely get you access to it. Just reach out to us, and we'll pull up your subscription and see what's going on. But yeah, let's get into the Excel add-in.
Wonderful. Thanks. Thanks, Sean. So I just had an Excel blank document opened up and just pivoted over to that. And I'm actually pointing to the KFI ribbon. So I think folks are probably familiar with all these different options in the menu. But when you uh, add our Excel add-in to your Excel, then you'll get the KFI functionality, which includes the data wizard, a refresh, which will show how that works, our template library, which we'll look at that too here before we're done this afternoon, some help about and log out, which I don't want to log out at the moment. But I'm going to select the data wizard. And this is going to open up our screener. And this screener does also exist in the web application, but I would describe it more as a basic version of it because it doesn't have all the data points. It has some selected ones, but not everything that you're going to see this afternoon as we go through this demonstration. And so I'm just going to clean up the screen a little bit, and I'm going to select some banks. So you can come in and select your company type. I'm going to keep it in the banking channel for our demonstration this afternoon. And then selfishly, I'm going to go down and select my home state of Kansas. And you'll see that there are 1,094 companies that have found, and that represents every filing that's ever existed that we have access to in the warehouse. But I really want to just see the active banks for this particular exercise. So I'm going to go to the balance sheet and select assets. And then down here, I'm pointing to the fourth quarter of 2025. And I want to look at banks that are between 500 million and 10 billion and add my criteria. And now you'll see that that's narrowed that down significantly to just 41 companies. If I want to just look over that, I can select show companies here, and that's going to bring in this list. I'll clean this up so you can see those more easily. But I can scroll through that, look at it, and I'm like, yep, this is the group I want to have. So this is my custom peer group, if you will. And then I'm going to go over to my field selection option here. And this is where now at your fingertips, literally, you have every single thing that you'd ever want to have to get a better view of what's going on with the institution. Under the company information, I know they're all in Kansas, but I kind of want to know what city they're in. So I'm just going to select that and add that criteria. It comes in over here. Definitely want to know their KFI score. And I'm going to want to look at like the last 3 quarters. So I'm going to change that. I've got that pointed to third quarter. Fourth quarter, it's actually going to bring in more than that because I've got this radio button in. So it's going to bring in those last 3 KFI scores. And then for the financial information, because I'm looking at banks, you want to make sure you select the 031, 041, 051. And I want to look at some metrics on these institutions. From a performance perspective, always love to see what efficiency looks like. And keep in mind, I can look at quarterly, trailing 12 months, annual, half year, year to date. I'm just going to leave it at quarterly for now and add those in there. And then always want to know return on assets. So type in return. There it is. We'll leave it at quarterly and add those selected fields. So if I'm good with this list of information at this point in time, I can come in and preview it again within the wizard, within the Excel add-in, kind of scroll through it, and I'm thinking, yep, this is it. I go ahead and export to Excel. And while you didn't see anything change on my screen that quickly, I'm just going to minimize this. And boom, I'm back into my Excel. And here we have the KBRA underscore number 1. This is the population of banks that I just extracted from our data warehouse. We use a KBRA matrix formula in the data wizard, and it has 4 arguments. The first one is that ID, which again, we're using the KAC ID here in this case, but if you happen to know a cert number or an RSSD, you could certainly query the database and bring the data back using that feature. Or say that indicator. The red is going to be their mnemonic. And so in this case, you'll see KFI underscore score, and then the K call for the efficiency and the K call for the ROA. So those all look good. And for the purple, it's actually the quarter. So we do use a relative date option on the matrix. So a 0Q would be the current quarter, -1 would be the previous quarter. So as you're working in templates and you want to bring in new information, you don't have to necessarily depends upon what that data point is, but it'll refresh using the most current information. You don't have to go in and hard code in another quarter or a date if you have it set up using this relative functionality. And then the last thing is going to be that convention, and we kept everything at quarterly. If it had been year to date or some other, that would have been highlighted there. When I'm looking at this list, what I should have done, I really should have brought in ROE too, and I did not do that. So I'm just going to insert a column and show you how simple it is to bring in another data point from the warehouse, just a little cut and paste, make that a little bit bigger here. And I'm going to point it to ROAE. I just happen to know that mnemonic off the top of my head, that's return on equity. And you'll see that the sheet now has a pound calc, which means I need to refresh that data. But before I do that, I'm going to come in here and just insert a row. And let's just say, for instance, I wanted to add just one more bank into the mix. And so since I have been talking about Equity Bank, I know they're already here, but I'm just going to do a little Control C and come up here and do Control V. And so I've added that into my ID form. I'm going to click out of that, go up to my refresh all, and this will show you just how instantaneously you can extract information from the data warehouse for this particular list of banks. So now I have efficiency for that particular time frame, or excuse me, return on average equity for that particular time frame. And then Equity Bank is both here and both here. But again, you could have added any other bank into the mix. So that is just a quick example of how you can get information so quickly out of the warehouse using our data wizard. The other thing I wanted to show you is our template library. And so I clicked there within the Excel that brought me right here, but I could have gotten here too from the main page of our web app. So I'll just go right back there, and we've got a number of pre-made templates that were created based upon user feedback, including peer comparisons. We have various loan and deposit category, regulatory reports. We do it for the bank, the holding company. There's credit union information out here, and even items for those gap filers. But I had selected earlier the deposit composition template, and I'm just going to navigate over to that right now at this moment. And so this is what it looks like. It has a list of banks just already in it from the default, but we can certainly change these, and it's very simple to do so. You can see the relative dates all highlighted here at the top, all the various mnemonics and everything through the matrix formula that we've talked about already. But the deposit timeline series that we have here, the deposit peer comparison has up to 5 institutions in this case that you can look at side by side. Uninsured deposits, which is a really big deal, as you all might recall a few years ago with the SVB failure. And then we have a really robust, just single report that allows you to compare a bank against its peer. But if I wanted to come back to my instruction page and let's just say I think Bank OZK, my nephew works for them, and I go to my deposit time series and hit that, just a control cut and paste, it immediately changed that subject institution from the one it was to Bank OZK. Same thing on the deposit peer comparison. I hit the Control V, bringing that up. The calc is reflected that I need to refresh this if I wanted to come back and say Bank OZK. So I'll just do that real quick so that we know which bank this is. If you don't have that KAC memorized, it'll just take a second for it to refresh you real quick. It's a lot of information on this particular sheet, but you'll see Bank OZK, uninsured
As
deposit.
you're going through this, like we're pulling all of these from that instructions tab, right? If you just go back
Yeah,
there.
that's right. That's
Right.
absolutely.
So can we go back to the instructions tab?
Yeah,
And I just want to see, I think we got 37 banks here, right?
yeah,
Could we take 37 banks from that Kansas peer group and drop that into the instructions so we change that peer group and the peer average?
absolutely. Let me go back to that particular worksheet for us. That was this one right here. So we
Yes,
need what?
exactly.
37 of those.
Yes. Now it
That's the
can be
next.
more or less than that if for everyone out there, it can be more. Like, it doesn't have to be 37. That just is what we have in this template now. That can be expanded, it can be less, but we're just going to stick with that now since we already have that built out here in the template. And Lance, if you just paste those in, right. So Lance is going to refresh that. And you'll see here we have all this data for these banks that were in here when we started, but because we added in those new identifiers for another completely different group of 37 banks, you'll see in a second here when this refreshes that all that data will be replaced with the new data. And there you go, right there. You see now all group of different banks, completely different peer group. And you can do this with, as I said, as many banks as you want, or just a few, however you want to do it. And if we take one of them, like I see Lance is going to do now, would you go to the deposit time series?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead to the actual single page,
Well,
but no.
we can stay here. This is fine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, do this one. And just
So
to
yeah,
show you that now, Equity Bank was not in that first peer group, right? But now that we've put it in to the raw data in the instructions tab, it's there now. It can pull in from there and go back to that report that you were just showing too, Lance. And we just dropped it in here too. This is something really cool that looks a lot like our snapshot that we showed at the earlier on in the presentation, but this is for deposit composition specifically. And so you'll see you'll have that deposit comp, the comparison to the peer average there, as well as the year over year change in deposits. And once again, this is just can be printed out on one sheet. It looks very big here in Excel, but it's actually just a one pager, just like the snapshot is.
and just want to show that uninsured deposit list was updated as well. So we had all the Kansas banks reflected now on that particular metric that was included in this template.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to a point where we've really shown you a lot of stuff in a very quick period of time, and would love to have chance to answer any more questions that you have. And as you've experienced this today with us, if there's things that you'd like to know more about, we always can have one-off conversations and provide your team with its own very own specific demo, going through specific use cases and things that maybe you're thinking about as you've looked at all of these little items that we've gone through here with you all today. But Sean, is there any other things that maybe you've seen come in on the Q&A since we got started?
Yes, and I'm glad you went back to the web app because there's something that, so once again, related to M&A that people were asking about. They were asking if they're like we have the data wizard and the screener. Is there something like that for M&A? Like, can you search up M&A deals in the same way that you can search up a bank? And yes, if you go to the screener and you do a new screener, Lance. There we go. You can actually search here with our M&A transaction screener. I don't think Lance has it right now, but that is something that if you want to reach out to us and get in contact with us about, once again, with M&A data, if you're not seeing it or on your subscription or whatever, reach out to us and we can do that. But yes, the answer is we do have a screener for M&A actually out there. So that was one question. Lance, if you would just go back to the dashboard again as well and just go back to that M&A tab. And another way you can do that too, like even if you don't use the screener, is once again, this is completely customizable how you want to look through this. You could do it by company, you could do it by pending, canceled, or even if it's a rumor, it'll come up in our database and for a specific period of time as well, which is very useful if you're only looking for, the last year, the last month, something like that. Yeah, if anyone has any further questions, we've got the Q&A open here. I see that we've got most of our participants actually throughout this whole thing. You guys have really stuck around here. I'm really glad to see that. And any questions from anyone, we're happy to field those now. Once again, please reach out to us, get in contact with us if this seems interesting. We, you know, we're always here to help you out, figure out what kind of data you might need, how we can build templates, because we showed you a couple of the templates, but that's really just kind of a starting point, right? The template is just a suggested way to start using this. There's no limitations to what we can do. Oftentimes, I start with a blank spreadsheet in Excel, and I just kind of build out from there, right? I see we got another question coming in. Can we see how custom? Oh, sorry. Are you willing to break down the costs here on the call, different tiers? Well, we won't talk costs, but we will. There are tiers, right? We have a pro version and a light version. The light version, you'll get everything that you see here, where you have the add-in, right? And then you'll have the pro version where you'll get, you have the web app here, I should say, with Lite. And then with Pro, you'll get the add-in along with the web app. And the best thing about all this is that it's almost zero lift, right? Almost zero lift, because with the web app, it's just something you log into. You get email and password you put in and you log in. With the web app, you're just downloading something for Excel, and it just becomes a little ribbon up there at the top. One thing I will say on pricing is that it's going to be based on your use case. It's going to be based on number of seats that you want. Pricing is it's different for everyone. But like I said, based on the use case, number of seats you want, and as in addition to the tiers as well.
No, thanks, Sean, for that question. I was just going to point out too, on the news and research that I highlighted before, it's on our public website, but it's also embedded here within the web app. So the articles that Sean produces on a regular basis are out here for you to look at as well on the main screen.
If we got a second, why don't we open one up? I mean, we may as well, right?
Yeah.
We'll open up the most recent one we did, kind of show a little bit of what we do in our insights. And we just did one on farm lending, some interesting insights there. If you scroll down to that second chart there, this data comes directly from KFI. That first chart, I did use some stuff from the USDA. That'll also be factored into this, but this is straight from KFI. This is call report data analyzing the trend in agricultural lending growth versus total lending, right? And so you can see that ag lending was really outpacing total bank lending, but now it's kind of trailing, right? It kind of slowed down and now it's trailing. Go down a little bit further, Lance, all the way to the bottom. And you see, once again, this is KFI data right here as well. This is delinquency of agricultural lending. We break that up in two ways. You have ag production, and then you also have CRE farmland delinquency. And both of those delinquency in both of those loan types is trailing total loan delinquency. So relatively speaking, pretty subdued compared to other types of lending. And that's just one insights report. We publish these weekly. There's all kinds of different topics. I mean, we'll talk about farm lending one week, stable coins, all kinds of different stuff here. And this is what I mean with the insights is why it's valuable, and how it helps you kind of understand, what do I use this data for? How do I look at this data? And it informs you about what's going on in the world, what's going on in the banking industry as well. So it's educational and it is interesting, if you ask me.
Definitely. Well, thank you. As we approach almost the top of the hour, just again, thank you for your time and spending it with us today to learn more about KFI. Please reach out with questions that maybe come to mind after we end today's session, and I would be just thrilled to have a chance to talk with you on a one-on-one basis. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Sean. We have a great team behind us that are here to help you and listen about really what you're trying to accomplish when you're thinking about how to do peer benchmarking, how to look at counterparty risk. If there's other ideas that you have, other data sets that you think would be helpful in the future, we're always looking for feedback. This is an evolving platform, so there's some things that hopefully will be released here in the not too distant future that would be embedded within the web application to allow you to do some things on a portfolio level that will be really meaningful. So come back and visit with us. We'll do a few more of these this year because you'll probably see some more functions and features and functionality that have not yet been released. So this is definitely going to be an expanding platform as we grow together.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, if you want to go over to the chat in the last minute we have here with you guys, if you're still here for the last minute, thank you. If you go over to the webinar chat, we have links to sign up for our insights. We have links to to sign up for a trial with KFI. Send us over your information, get your organization, a more in-depth demo training session, get yourself a trial, as well as our emails. You have Lance's email. It's going to be lance.caldwell@kbra.com, as well as sean.mcgovern@kbra.com. And yeah, that should be up in the chat for another couple of seconds here if you want to run over there and get that. We're using every second of our hour with you, and if you're sticking around, I guess you must really like us. And yeah, so like Lance said, thanks a lot, guys. I think we can call it here. I don't see any more. Hang on, I think we got one more question. Just a thank you from Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. It's good to see you as always. Yeah, with that, I think that we can call it a day. Everyone have a great afternoon, have a great rest of your day. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Take care.